May 25th, 2023, on the day that most of us celebrate African Liberation Day. Just all of you celebrating African Liberation Day. Just want to big up each and every one of you. Everyone have that African consciousness. We just want to big you up today on this day. I remember back in the day when you had African Liberation Day organized by Rosie Douglas in Salisbury, that was in the 80s. That was something real big to look forward to when it was organized in the 80s, yeah, where you had Pan-Africanists from all over the world coming to Dominica to and in Salisbury on the Salisbury playing field for that activity. So I just want to say once again to each and every one of you, happy African Liberation Day, May 25th. Just want to extend sympathies to families of Zedora Pet John Charles, Elizabeth John Charles of Salisbury. She'll be laid to rest tomorrow in Salisbury. Just want to extend sympathies once again to her family as she's laid to rest. In River Syriac will be laying at the Monjon Catholic Church on Saturday, June 3rd, will be the burial of Eugene Hayden. Eugene Hayden Francis, the father of Tinam and all the others up there in Rivier Syriac. I just want to extend sympathies to you. He'll be laid to rest on June 3rd. That's a Saturday. And also Mr. Telemark Allen of Laplin will also be laid to rest. I think somewhere in the 6th. I passed by his family sometime on Sunday. I just want to reach out to them again and extend sympathies to the entire family on the passing of Mr. Allen. He was a banana farmer, so I knew him very well. Very friendly, positive gentleman, very ambitious in terms of his work. He'll be laid to rest on in Laplin on the 2nd. The funeral service of Telly will be held on Friday, 2nd June 2023 at the Laplin Catholic Church at 3 p.m. followed by internment at the Laplin Catholic Cemetery. I just want to reach out to the families of Telemark Allen, Sedora Pet, John Charles, and Eugene Hayden Francis of River Street. Yeah, I just want to welcome you once again to, we always do that, reach out to you. We have lots of one people are not doing too well. We know that Gifford Paul does want to reach out to you this evening. Mr. Anisette John Charles Addison is at the hospital. Saw him yesterday. Some other friends in the hospital just want to reach out to you and the families. Just want to say, Shabe, it was nice seeing you at the hospital. From Maho, the bus driver, it was nice seeing you yesterday. Just want to wish you all the very best as you continue to get on the better side of things. Yeah, to those of you who have family members, Mr. Winston Prospect, could be strict good evening to you. Joseph Hunter, it was nice seeing you. All of you out there, just want to reach out and say good evening to you from the leadership of our party, Dr. Thompson Fountain, our leader, our our deputy political leader, Mr. Clement Marcelin, our president, Mr. Lennox Linton, and our Vice President, Mrs. Francisca Joseph. Just want to wish each and every one of you good evening and the rest of the members of the United Workers' Party. Last night we had a very good meeting in Roseau North with Mr. Daniel Lugie, just in the intersection of Federation Drive and Goodwill Road. And a very good meeting, just to really echo the sentiments and inviting people to join us on the 31st of May, the day 31st of May on the Arch Riverbank Road. So join us for the electoral reform rally. We want everybody to be there. There's a very important gathering. We want each and every one of you to be there. Don't say, I didn't know about it. If you have your friends, your neighbors, send a message to remind them. Buses will be available. Come out and give support to this activity on May 31st, Wednesday, next week, Wednesday. That is your day. I want you to be there and to come and participate and show solidarity as we continue to stand up and demand electoral reform. I think a lot of us have to stop being shy and being afraid. Today, we had protest actions by our Haitian brothers and sisters and people from this Dominican Republic, living in Dominica, have issues with getting the documents they paid for, and they cannot get the documents, and they protested today in Dominica. They are not Dominicans, bona fide Dominicans. They're living residing in Dominica, and they protested, and bona fide Dominicans, people who've been affected, lawyers, this is doctors, truck drivers, bus drivers, the ghetto youths were being affected. We are free to speak. We are free to stand up. Farmers, we are free to stand up. We need to stand together as a team, united. You don't the colors. Let us put the colors down on the side for the time being, but let us look at being as Dominican, patriotic Dominicans, Dominicans who want better for the country and for the children, and the advancement of each and every one of us. If you love democracy, if you love freedom, if you love what is right, you cannot remain silent. So you have to stand up and join the fight as we move forward. I just want to also share some, I will say it's somewhat disturbing information that I got early on, and it's we as citizens, we have to speak out that at the hospital, we are faced with a crisis at the Princess Margaret Hospital in terms of IV catheter. An IV catheter is used to put blood syringe into a patient. If you want to give them blood, you want to give them some glucose or whatever. Feed them if it's babies. You need that, and we have a shortage of that on island, and it is coming from people who are very worried in the health service, and they want that to be echoed to reach the government. I mean, a lot of communication has gone to the people in charge, in authority, in the PS, the Minister of Health, those in charge of the hospital or whatnot. They know about it. The CMO, the Chief Medical Officer, everybody knows about it, that we have that issue. And I'm hearing that the IV catheters cannot come in because of lack of financial resources from the state. But we have money, $64,000 gives to the Prime Minister, where you have, I'm hearing as well, it is alleged that 2 children died because they didn't have IV catheter at the hospital to give them that type of support that they needed urgently. And that's a serious issue. I want us to, as Dominicans, to look at it as a very serious issue, because if your brother or sister or your mother, your grandfather get ill and they have to go to the hospital or to the health center, and they need to put them an IV, they cannot do it because we do not have IV catheter on island. And I just want us to echo that sentiment. It's a serious matter. I hope that the Minister of Health, Mr. Cassani Laville, the PS in Health, I think is Mrs. Wyke, and the others can address that ASAP. The head of the hospital, or the matron, and everybody else who have a role to play in I think you have a new manager of the hospital right now. I think hospital authority has a new manager, a lady. I'm hoping that can be addressed ASAP by tonight. That we can start making calls and ensure by tomorrow a plane can come in the island with IV catheters, and say that there's none on island, none on the district, none on the wards. Babies are left without medication and even to die. It's a crisis. IV fuels, what the layman call life water, cannot be administered without them, IV catheters. So I'm calling on the health authorities to ensure that we have IV catheters in Dominica by tomorrow. I'm hoping that they get the message. I know that a lot of our people, or for friends on the Labour Party side, listen to our program, and I'm hoping that they can get that message and pass it on ASAP. In studios with me right now, we're expecting another gentleman to join us, and as we continue to discuss and bring out information as we prepare to have a very large gathering on the 31st of May in downtown Roseau on the arch on the riverbank. Downtown Roseau. I just want in studios with me tonight. Last night we were, I think he was warming up on at the meeting in the Rosa North with Daniel Lugia. Very nice meeting, very nice crowd, very nice atmosphere, very good meeting last night. So welcome to the studios of Q95. Once again, the president of our party, Mr. Lennox Linton.
This one. My brother Hector, good evening to you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to your wonderful people of Salisbury and the people of the West Coast and those on the East Coast and those in Marigot, Dominica, Concord and Marigot, my hometown. Always a pleasure to be with you. Dominica, Dominicans at home, abroad, wherever in the global community you find yourself tonight and you have taken the time out to join us, we welcome you warmly from wherever you are. It's always good to connect and to talk about the nation's business. And to come in from where Hector John was a moment ago on a crisis of sorts in the healthcare services with the difficulties in administering what we call life water to children. Is IV catheters for children, Hector John?
Yes.
All right. As you're listening to the story, aren't you telling yourself out there that it is time for a proper inquiry into what is happening at the nation's main hospital so that the issues that, whatever the issues that the healthcare providers up there are contending with that is adversely affecting the state of healthcare in Dominica can be dealt with? It is time for an inquiry.
Yeah.
We're hearing too much of these stories, too much of these horror stories coming out of the main hospital in Dominica. And all we can hear from the authorities in response is that what exists, as far as they're concerned, at the main hospital in Dominica is utopia. Everything there is perfect. There's need for nothing else. All that is need for, it seems, as far as the Prime Minister is concerned, is for people to stop stealing toilet paper at the hospital, and then everything will be just fine. But we're not talking about toilet paper tonight. We're talking about IV catheters for children.
Yes, for everybody.
For everybody.
Yeah, and it is. You saw, I mean, to give life fuel, everybody said to children cannot eat that. You have to give them the type of support, and it is alleged that 2 children passed, babies passed because of the lack of IV catheters.
You know, I want to call tonight, and this is a serious call. There needs to be an inquiry into the state of the main hospital, the operations of the main hospital in Dominica, Princess Margaret Hospital, if you prefer the Dominica China Friendship, whatever name you choose. There needs to be a public inquiry into what is happening there to inform a proper plan of action going forward to improve the state of healthcare in Dominica, at the main hospital particularly, around Dominica generally. It is time for an inquiry. We cannot continue to hear these pictures, these stories of utopia being painted by the government authorities, while the experience of people at the facility is something totally and absolutely different.
Yes, Mr. Linton, when I was reached by some one individual today, and someone else called me. They were literally in tears. You know, one said to me, Mr. John, I know you're on your program tonight. That is something that is a crisis. We need that to be addressed.
The health of the nation is the wealth of the nation.
Yeah. And
it is one powerful reason why people from all around Dominica should show up in Roseau at the riverbank on the 31st of May, 2023. That is next Wednesday coming. In terms of healthcare, the people of the Northeastern Health District in particular are going to be in Roseau in numbers at the riverbank on the 31st of May. Very simply because one reason. There are many, but this one reason I highlight tonight. The hospital that serves them in Marigot has been shut down for termite infestation from 2014. That is 9 years ago. And that a hospital building, after much protest action, after much talking and much advocacy, a hospital building was constructed at a cost of somewhere in the region of $32 million or thereabout. We ended up paying for the hospital facility I guess that would include equipment and everything. $59.6 million. That is the cost to the Treasury of Dominica, $59.6 million as at the 30th of June 2022. But to date, notwithstanding the fact that the hospital building completed was handed over in 2021, before the end of June 2021, it was handed over. And 2 years have gone by, and that building remains locked down. The hospital remains closed to the people of the Northeast Health District and the people of Dominica generally. It is one reason, one of the many reasons, why the people of Marigot and the people of the Northeastern District will be coming into Roseau to register their dissatisfaction, to say that this is totally and absolutely unacceptable. And that is not the kind of governance that we in Dominica are going to continue to stand for.
Thank you very much, Mr. Linton. In studios with us as well tonight, a gentleman is no stranger to the radio. He was there for us last week, Saturday. He was in this chair I am sitting right now. So let me welcome to the studios of Q95 on the Workers' Voice. That's your first time on the Workers' Voice?
Very, very first time.
Right. Let me welcome Mr. Lofty Durant. As we know that we had that activity coming up on the 31st. And so we're bringing everybody on deck, showing unity, and we need unity to achieve our goal on the 31st and beyond. So welcome, Mr. Loftus Durant.
Brother Hector John, good evening to you. Good evening to Mr. Linton in here as well.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
Well, holding the string, as they say in Dominica, holding the string. And to the many, many listeners here, and I brought a special good evening to you guys. It's always a pleasure to be in your company in whatever capacity. Once I'm doing it for Dominica, then I'm contented with that.
Yeah. Yes. I was just listening to you, Lofty. Tonight we're going to speak on the electoral reform issue, education, as we continue to energize the base to be there, to show up. One of our challenges that we have had for the past time is uniting our forces, and staying united. And I think so far so good, but we need to bring everybody on board: the bus drivers, the heavy equipment operators, the ghetto youth, the teachers, farmers, nurses, the vendors on the bayfront. Some of them are being scared and backing off, as well. So we need to bring everybody on board. And tonight, I think I just want you and Mr. Linton. I will allow you all to take charge of the discussion, and I just want to also call and participate as well. Let's just make it very interactive on electoral reform. Where we are right now, what needs to be done, what has to be done to ensure that we have electoral reform. Gentlemen, take it from there. Lofty, you would like to lead? Go ahead.
Well, Brother Hector, I feel directed tonight to basically have the presence of the Almighty permeate this place. But more importantly, the place that we, the people of Dominica, will be gathering come the 31st. I feel so moved because I personally believe that some of what that is going on in Dominica for some time, there is a spiritual element to it that our mere strength cannot in no way, shape, or form measure up in terms of dismantling what has been set against us as a people. And so it's on that note tonight, I personally would just like to ask the Almighty Father presence to go before us as a people and direct what is to happen come the 31st. Go before us and basically cleanse the place where his people will be standing, sitting, or whatever posture that we decide to take on that day. And right about now, I would just like to say a short prayer, as it were, a short talk with the Almighty before I really go into what I really have to deliver tonight as it pertains to the agenda for electoral reform for Dominica. And so please permit me, Brother Hector.
Right ahead.
Heavenly and eternal Father God, we come before your mighty throne of grace. We thank you, Lord, for you being God, alone and by yourself. I acknowledge your highness. I acknowledge your supremacy. And so it's on that note that I would like to ask you, Lord, right about now, to cleanse me, as it were, cleanse my lips, purge me with hyssop, as it were, so that whatever I speak to you tonight will not just be words, but it will be a conversation. It will be a dialogue with you, myself, and the people of Dominica by extension, both here and abroad. And so tonight, Father God, I confess my sins before you at this time. I confess the nation's sins before you at this time. Split them right open in the name of none other than your Son. Father God, come and take full control at this time as we continue to wrestle not against flesh and blood, as it were, but against spiritual forces in high places, as your word says. And so at this time, whatever accursed thing that has been besetted against your people through your Son, through this prayer, may it be dismantled. May it be destroyed. May it be uprooted at this time. May that be done in the spiritual realm at this time. And in due time, it will be manifested in the physical so that all of us, all eyes, will see. Father God, you know where we are as a people. You know our struggles, you know our pain. And it is in this time that I beseech your strength, I beseech your wisdom. I beseech what you alone can bestow on us as a people in terms of helping us deliver ourselves. So be it a mighty man, be it a mighty woman that has come against your people at this time. Just like in the time of old, you come by your power, by your glory, and dismantle each and every element that has beset itself against your people at this time. And at the end of the day, may the honor, may the praise, may everything that you have done be acclaimed back to you and not to man. Father God, just take full and total control of our words tonight and our words on the 31st, as it were. Make it be a new beginning. Make it be a revival. Make it be, Father God, what you ordained it to be. And that may, as it were, a spiritual seed be planted. And this may just be the beginning. And that seed, as it were, will grow up into a big and an unrootable tree. And that your people who are called by your name will reap the benefits thereof. Father, we have been on this road too long. And just like the people who murmured and they were supposed to get to their destination in a mere 40 days, and it took them 40 years plus. Have we as a people been murmuring too long? Have we as a people forgotten your goodness? And so I ask you, God, to those of us whose hearts are of stone, those of us whose hearts are not of flesh, lighten it up. Those of us who have severed our consciences, as it were, bring us back to reality. And at the end of the day, you alone, as I said, receive the honor and the glory. Father God, we look to you in high expectation that there is a hope, and that hope is in you alone. May all what I've said tonight go up to you, God, as a sweet smelling savor through your nostrils, and that the desired blessings be bestowed upon us as a people in no other name but in your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray.
Amen.
And all God's people say,
Amen.
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 Amen. Yes, gentlemen. Lofty, thanks for the prayer. Saturday is on right now time. Let's also move forward into the discussion on electoral reform. Just want to let everybody know to listen to the workers' voice here on Q95. In studios with me is Mr. Lennox Linton, our president, and the person you just heard prayed, Mr. Loftus Dura, as we discuss and further discuss more and more on electoral reform and educate our people and the importance of it and being there and then galvanizing our base to be out there on the 31st. Mr. Dura.
Yes, Hector, tonight I am sitting in the capacity of the interim chair, as it were, of the Electoral Commission Committee. That is a committee in Dominica that, in terms of composition, is made up of a number of different organizations and political parties as well. So the United Workers' Party is part of the Electoral Reform Committee, the Dominica Freedom Party, the DPSU, that is the Dominica Public Service Union, the Concerned Citizen Movement, Civic Vibes. Who else I'm forgetting? We have a number of organizations in Dominica, and I want to be very clear, especially organizations and persons who are not in sync with what is happening as it pertains to the malgovernance of our country. These organizations and persons are part and parcel of the ERC. And so it is the ERC in conjunction with the United Workers' Party that made the call. And so it is, although you may not be seeing all of us saying or doing certain things, but the backing of that movement, it is the members basically give the movement is blessing in terms of we helping along the way. We coming together to help deliver, help our country through a very trying time. So it is that sort of union, that sort of movement, that sort of amalgam coming together to make the heavy work, I must say, lighter. And so is that body. I am the interim chair of it tonight, and so whatever I say tonight from then on, I'll be representing these bodies, these organizations that I mentioned there tonight. Electoral reform, Hector John, has been on our plate in Dominica for some time. I need not go back there. Most of us know where we are, know where we were. But it behooves all of us to basically own up, man up, as it were, and help to restore our country to where it was in terms of its better days, but where, more importantly, we want to go as a people. And I just want to write about now, debunk the myth out there that electoral reform or the making of the process for elections free and fairer, it is a thing about United Workers' Party. It is a thing about the opposition cause in Dominica to remove one and put in place another. That is a lie straight from the pit of hell. And that is why I believe some of our people, especially those who are singing from the hymn sheet of the Dominican Labour Party, will not move a muscle when it comes to that discussion, because they have been pounded with that lie every day, every night, that, oh, these guys want to use electoral reform as a cover to remove your party / your government from power. And Hector, Mr. Linton, we all know that is not the truth. We are simply pushing for a better Dominica. And that better Dominica, it is for all rights, no matter where you are politically. And so I just want to lay that sort of cornerstone or foundation stone right there as we move into that discussion. Because electoral reform, Hector, shouldn't be a very back and forth with us as a people. Obviously, there will be differences. We need to fine tune it. We need to give and take. Because steering down the road, Hector, I can see, for example, there must be some compromise on all sides. But it shouldn't be that long, drawn-out tug of war, that always wrestling and fussing and fighting, as it were, with each other as a people. No, we can do better than that. We have done better than that. And so whoever wants to hold us in that dungeon, we should be prepared as a people, first and foremost, educate ourselves, and be prepared to put that knowledge into practice by being, as our national song says, be good Dominicans, good citizens. And we can only be good citizens by doing what is best for Dominica. It cannot be one set alone that is sort of, getting the cream of the country, and others, have to be in that political wilderness, as it were. No. What is good for one supposed to be good for the other in this country. And for too long, we have been at that very old juncture where when you hear the conversation, it would seem as if persons are fed up of where we are, but in action, it is a totally different story. And so I just want to sort of have Dominicans, especially the labor rights, those who call themselves labor rights, to be a little more easy when it comes to making the process freer and fairer. That's all. I'll get into more in a bit.
Mr. Linton.
Thank you very much, Hector. Thank you very much, Lofty. The call for Dominicans to stand for electoral reform and for an end to delays, undesirable delays, hesitation, foot dragging, etc. The process on the 31st of May is a call that has meaning and purpose for all Dominicans, because the electoral process that we talk about belongs to all of us. It is our process to deliver free and fair elections, to be fit for the purpose of free and fair elections with integrity, meaning that this democracy is one of those in which the people periodically transfer the power that belongs to them to a group to serve them in government. They give them the people's power. And that people's power is supposed to be recalled at the will of the people. The government of the people must always reflect the will of the people. And that is why systems must be in place for elections to be free, to be fair, and to have integrity, for that enlightened purpose of having government serve the will of the people and not the wishes of a single man, a single individual, or a particular privileged group of people. And over the last 20 years, in which we have had no change of government in this democracy, what you have seen is one man, one group of people having hijacked the electoral process, ensuring that election after election, it delivers no other result than to keep them in power. What do they want with indefinitely remaining in power. All that this is about is their abuse of the public resources for their private gain. They want to do what they want for their benefit with the resource of the people, while the people are treated like second-class citizens in their own country. And we have seen the effect of what happens in a democracy when people fear the people in government. The people who they gave their power, to run their affairs, they end up being fearful of them in office, when in fact it is those who are in office serving the people who should be fearful of the people and who should be accountable to the people for the stewardship of their country. When you have government that is accountable to the people and fearful of the people, the expression of the will of the people, then you have true democracy. And this fight that we're embarking on is a fight for the rescue of Dominica. Dominica needs to be rescued from the clutches of those who in the last 20 years have decided the country belongs to them, they have hijacked it, and they're going to do what they want with the country. So that when you hear of all of the sad stories in healthcare, all of the failures in the economy that have people struggling and struggling harder and harder every day to survive in this country, when you hear all those stories, you realize those in government, it is not the people they're looking out for, they are looking out for themselves. And in fact, they're doing wonderfully well, amassing their millions, amassing their mansions, while the people's interests gallop to hell in a handbasket, while people become poorer and poorer, and while the struggle to survive gets harder and harder with every passing day. That cycle has to end. That brutality, that oppression against the people of Dominica by those who have hijacked the electoral process and made it unfit for the purpose of electing government that is an expression of the will of the people, it has to come to an end. And that is why the people will gather in their numbers on the 31st of May, because they feel it's time to reclaim their country. It is time to rescue their country. It's also time to reset the economy of Dominica, because there's nobody living in Dominica right now who can fairly argue that the economy of Dominica is working for the best interests of the people of Dominica. Not when the Prime Minister can get up and boast that over $214 million a year leaves our shores and goes elsewhere through foreigners employed in Dominica in construction and in agriculture. Over $214 million. He said it goes through Western Union and MoneyGram. That was his statement to the public a few months ago, which tells you that where the public sector wage bill is not close to $200 million a year, but you have foreigners coming into your country, taking the country's hard-earned money and employment income in agriculture and construction, and sending over $200 million of it overseas to their countries. It is not an economy that is working for Dominicans, because in the same economy, Dominicans are unemployed, underemployed, increasingly poor, some of them starving. The middle class is disappearing, if it has not already fully disappeared. That is where we are in Dominica. Healthcare is a mess. Children seeking assistance for higher education are told to go and shake their pampalam. You have all of these examples of abuse of a people who are the rightful owners of the resources of Dominica, and for whom the resources of Dominica must work. So Dominica must be first for all of us. And in Dominica, we must come first. So Dominica first, Dominicans first. In this blessed land, this blessed nature island of the world that God has blessed with so much, and of which we are doing so little for ourselves because of the poor state of governance in the country over the last 20 years, which is why people have gotten to the stage of fed up. They're sick and tired. They're fed up to their back teeth. And so they will stand together on the 31st of May. We call them to stand, and to stand for country, and to say, we are moving on now with control of our country. We are demanding, first and foremost, electoral reform to fix the process for election, to make it fit for the purpose of giving us free and fair elections that are an expression of the will of the people and not the interest of one man and his group who have hijacked the process. We are standing for the rescue of Dominica out of the clutches of those who have plundered its resources for their own gain in the last 20 years. We are calling for a reset of the economy so that it can work for the people of Dominica. So the people of Dominica can be employed in good paying jobs, that they can take care of themselves, that they can build their lives, they can build their families, they can extend themselves into the universe and be happy. And we are rebuilding Dominica. So we are rescuing, we're resetting, we're rebuilding Dominica. We were building a Dominica first for all Dominicans first in our blessed country. That is what the 31st is all about. And so in that context, Hector, I wanted to just make a few observations about where Dominica is at the present time. Last 5 years, our country contributed on an average 8% to the GDP of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, 8%. It makes us the smallest of the big 6 countries in the OECS. Antigua, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Kitts are all ahead of us. And the growth, the average growth in those countries, all the OECS countries, including those 6 and Montserrat and Anguilla, our growth in the last 2 years, while we boast about it, was below the average growth in the OECS grouping. Like most of the places in the world, we're paying higher prices for food. The calculation of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is that we're paying, as of December last year, 11% more for food, 14% more for energy. And in terms of the government's management of its affairs, the deficit, the gap between the expenses and the revenue widened. And that's because we have high expenditure, especially elevated capital expenditures. We have a program called the Citizenship by Investment Program, which has become the largest contributor to government revenues in the last 2 years. 54% of everything that the government collects comes from the Citizenship by Investment Program. This is what the government tells the rest of the world. So that is what the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank reports. That is what the IMF will most likely report. We have our own calculation of revenues, which make it significantly higher than that. Because we repeat that for the 4-year period, 2016 to 2020, Dominica sold 23,794 citizenships, which should have brought in revenues of $5.4 billion, $5,400 million, from which we only received $1.2 billion or $1,200 million into the treasury of Dominica, which left an unaccounted balance of $4.2 billion in respect of that 4-year period, out there somewhere under the control of Mr. Skerritt and his friends. The CBI is said to be critical for the transformation agenda of Dominica. The concern that Dominicans have, and for which they stand and will stand on the 31st, is that this money is not being properly accounted for. And a lot of it is ending up in private hands. When we came to the point of the construction of the international airport, we in the United Workers' Party said it was not necessary to raise $1 more from citizenship sales to build the airport because we already had enough in reserve with $4.2 billion. Nonetheless, the developer contract for the airport has gone to the gentleman who is involved with Mrs. Skerritt in collecting our passport money and holding it overseas. And that developer contract has gone to him without any international airport development experience or any international airport construction experience either. He has gotten that big gig as the one who will be responsible for the development of the airport And he has gone ahead and he has issued a contract all by himself to a company from China as the main contractor. So they're rolling now. Mobilization fees being paid over there, mobilization fees being paid down here as well, although the Prime Minister tells us it is the developer's responsibility to pay for the cost of the airport, and he'll be refunded from citizenship sales. But they're paying over there, we are paying down here. And all of the evidence has already begun to surface that Dominica's money from the sale of passports are being mismanaged, are being misappropriated, with the international airport being used as an excuse. Another reason why the people of Dominica have to stand and say, this is not acceptable. It is not acceptable to us. You cannot be doing that you cannot be using an international airport to misappropriate our money, billions of our dollars. So we are coming to say this has to end. It has to stop. Tax collections in this economy, insufficient to cover the expenditures that have been that the government is incurring. But the economy is expanding. So people, for heaven's sake, understand where we are. We have a growing economy, which should mean more people are working, more people are paying taxes, more people are buying goods and services on which taxes are remitted to the government. So the government should be making more money from taxes in the growing economy. The economy is growing, but Eastern Caribbean Central Bank tells us the government is getting less taxes from the growing economy. And the debt levels are continuing to rise. And interestingly, in terms of food and nutrition security, we have a food import bill of $150 million in this agriculture country, you know. And, and let me tell you something, $150 million. Dominica was one of only 2 countries in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union in which food imports as a percentage of total imports increased in 2022. You will hear from the government how wonderfully well we're doing with agriculture. Our food comes from the agriculture community. That's where we make the food. But we're importing more food as a percentage of our total imports in 2022 compared to other countries in the OECS that imported less food as a percentage of their total imports. So we talk about renewable energy. There's where some strides were supposed to have been made so that our electricity bills or energy bills could reduce. They're continuing to climb. Right now, Dominic is load shedding. It is managing the load because of the heat of these times. We have a good energy mix because we have a lot of our power needs generated from hydro. That goes back a long way. We haven't made any significant progress with diversification of the mix because for the length of time we've been talking about geothermal and the more than $100 million we've spent on geothermal in the last 20 years, we still don't have a light bulb powered by geothermal anywhere in the country. And all we continue to hear is about the promises and the promises and the promises. So you have to understand as Dominica where we are and why it is so difficult for Dominica to employ its young people, for Dominica to set the stage or to have the environment in which people can thrive, environment in which there can be sustainable livelihoods right across Dominica, especially in rural communities where the economy has gone to sleep. There's no rural economy anymore. Hector John remembers the days when bananas were alive and well and people were rolling in millions of dollars into their communities across Dominica.
Money was missing money.
And that has disappeared. The government has done nothing at all to replace that or to even continue with some banana exports. Everywhere else is still shipping bananas. We're the only country, one of the big banana countries in the region that right now we're selling nothing under this government. And then when you talk about agriculture, this government tells you, well, no, everything is fine. We're diversifying, we're improving, but all that, the problem is, and why people stand, is what their government tells them is always trickery, deception. It's always an attempt to fool them, never wanted to tell them the truth. How can you have a government that doesn't speak the truth to you? A government that is constantly trying to pull wool over your eyes and make you feel that things are what they're not. You know, you feel you're living the reality, you know. The government is trying to convince you that this is not what it is something else. You have to stand against that. You must stand against it because you know what you're feeling. And when you're feeling what you're feeling, you have a cabinet of ministers from which a house of dark secrets is rising in the middle of the city at $40+ million. And in that same cabinet of ministers, you have another mansion going up at Mont Daniel for over $20 million one time. No bank anywhere in Dominica will finance that. And we know where the money comes from. But it is happening before our eyes, and we are eyes wide shut. We need to stand against these atrocities. And so that is what May 31st is all about. It's about the electoral reform to fix our process for free and fair elections. It's about rescuing, resetting, and rebuilding Dominica, which is the responsibility not of the people in government and who are benefiting from what is happening right now. It's the responsibility of the people who are on the receiving end of the oppression and the brutality to stand and do something about it. And that's exactly what we are doing on the 31st of May.
Thank you very much, Mr. Linton. Just as you talk about the oppression, we just have to remind Dominicans as well. Today is African Liberation Day, something that was very big in the 80s when it was being organized by Rosie Douglas in Salisbury. And as I speak about the oppression, it just came to mind. I spoke about it earlier on. I just want to remind people today's African Liberation Day. And we're seeing that movement, that energy to just fight the oppressors into the 31st of May on the riverbank. You're listening to the Workers' Voice. In studios with Mr. Lennox Linton, our president, and also Mr. Loftus Durant of the Electoral Reform Committee. Or coalition, right? Coalition.
Yes, committee, Electoral Reform Committee. Yes.
And I was reminded or informed that tomorrow, the leadership of the United Workers' Party, along with Zed Lloyd, will be on the CCM program with Mr. John Blanchard and the others. Just want to let people know that everybody's coming on board.
I've been invited to
right.
Dr. Fontaine as well.
Dr. Fontaine. So that's tomorrow on the CCM program. And don't forget, we have the car raffle continues. Ticket sales for the car raffle continues tomorrow in front of the Prevo Cinema Mall. Only $5 can win a Mazda Demio, a flat screen TV, or rice cooker on July 3rd, 2023. Just around the corner. So get your tickets for that as well. Mr. Durant, you spoke earlier and you heard Mr. Linton touch some parts of the economy, why it is important that we have this type of discussion to encourage, to educate people. Because you make a very important point earlier on that they have been pushing around is a United Workers' Party thing. It's for United Workers' Party, not about Dominica, creating a level playing field for anybody who want to run, anybody who want to vote, and they're eligible to vote, meet that requirement and not get disenfranchised. And that is why we want to create that level playing field. In terms of the economy, in terms of what you hear in Mr. Dura, as a member as the interim chair of the ERC, what do you think we need to do as a people in terms of the economy, in terms of the oppression that continue? A lot of people cannot even today. Just before I go, I met a young lady on the bus just before I come to the radio program on the promenade, and I know her very well. I said, Mr. John, I was waiting for my husband there, but things are very bad in the country. Tough. We're just struggling to survive, and it is a lot. It goes back to what Mr. Linton was saying.
That's the reality.
Yeah. Spark, just before I answer your question, let me thank Mr. Boston.
Okay, Johnson Boston.
Boston just reminded me that it's the Electoral Reform Coalition Committee. All right. So, Brother Boston, thanks for listening, and thanks for the correction. Coalition really speaks to the togetherness, the togetherness in which we are at this time. All right. So yes. In terms of the question that you asked, and after I answer that question, Hector, I'll get into much more logistics as to on the day before the feast, because a lot of persons out there wants to know exactly what is set for the day. Right. Some persons are even asking what is set after that day. Right. So I'll be getting into some of that in just a while. But the long and short of your answer, Hector, it is to the good book says, and I like to refer to the good book because it is one of my guiding principles that I live by. The good book says, Hector, figuratively speaking, that is, if your left hand is offending you,
Cut it off.
you cut it off. And there are some cutting off that we need to do in Dominica for us in Dominica as a country, as a people, to realize our dreams, realize our aspirations, realize our potential in Dominica. And so whatever is in our way, we need to do away with what is in our way. I cannot say it simpler than that. And we in Dominica, we know what is in our way in terms of preventing us from realizing our ideals. We know.
Full potential now.
And so we have to use the democratic process now, because I don't want anybody to take me up tomorrow and say, oh, I'm this and that. We have to use the process that we are shooting for through proper reforms to make our country right, to get things right. And that is why this electoral reform rally, it is so crucial. It is. So come the 31st of May, no one in Dominica, absolutely nobody, should have any excuse to say they are not coming because of whatever reason they may come up with. You have the steering committee, the people putting it together as the conduit, raising the necessary funds out there. And let me thank all the persons so far who have honored the pledge in that department. And thank persons as well who will be coming on board to give to that noble cause. We thank you guys out there in very profuse ways. So the buses are now being lined up. Transportation is being provided. Gone are those days in the 60s and 70s, I hear the stories of persons who just be there. But we realize times have changed. The economic situation in Dominica is so dire that if we need people in a place, we need to help them get to that place. And that is why we are doing what we are doing to help people get to the arch on the 31st. So there should be no excuse to say you cannot come, you cannot make it. There will be transportation provided for you. It's just a matter of you getting up and inquiring as to who are the designated buses, the designated drivers in your way that is going down to that place, so you can get a ride to go and get a ride to go back home. Let me just allay the fears as well, Hector. I'm dealing with logistics now.
Yeah.
A lot of Dominicans, some persons are very fearful of the police in Dominica. Whenever these times come around, Mr. Linton, you hear some persons put up the defense as okay, or put up the excuse as okay. I'm not coming there because the police will be there to do this, the police will be there to do that. So I want to allay the fears of these persons and others who may be thinking in that mindset now to say the police was informed via a letter that that activity is happening on the 31st. So it is not a fly-by-night thing. It is not a thing we're doing in secret. The police, I'm being told, I guess Lennox will get into more details as to that meeting that was held today with the police, the hierarchy of the police. And basically what I'm being told, the police gave the activity their blessings in brief, because the police realized that Dominica is still a democratic country. And so the police, who are the custodians of law and order in Dominica, basically gave the green light, gave their blessings to that activity. So the myth that the police is coming to do something or has something of this, no. And the activity on the 31st, people, it will be one of, not a chaotic one, not a violent one. So there should be no reason for businesses at this time in Roseau to even buy plywood to lock down the place. No. And I've been hearing that, Hector, and that's why I'm pushing it out. Persons are always trying to align these activities to very violent actions. What we are coming to do as a people, the listening public out there, is to stand for our rights. It is always right to do what is right. MLK said that. So it is right to stand for our rights in Dominica, where free and fair election or freer and fairer election is concerned. Simple put. So on that day, Hector, the people who will be speaking will be telling Roosevelt Skerrit in very unambiguous terms and tones that the posture that he has been taking publicly and maybe even privately to sort of control, direct where things go, he should stay away from the conversation in that fashion. Roosevelt Skerrit is a player in the whole electoral process in Dominica. He is the leader of a party, a political party. And so that is why we have the Electoral Commission that's supposed to be an independent body giving directions to where things go. But the posture Roosevelt have been taking publicly, and as I said privately, maybe it is not good. So he should keep his hands, his mouth out of the conversation as to how he wants to direct things, as to how to know. So we will be telling him that in very clear terms on the 31st. All Roosevelt Skerrit should be doing, he should and his government be providing the necessary monies so that whenever it is due to go to Parliament, then the Electoral Commission will be properly funded to execute on the people's behalf. That is his role, that is his function of his government. We realize as well, he has the authority or the leeway, the legal leeway to take it to Parliament. That is his duty. That is his government's duty with his AG. So that is where they should be focusing the energies, Hector and Mr. Linton and the listening public. And not the sort of high and mighty role that he spoke to Byron and he's fed up with this and he's fed up with that. Mm-hmm. And no, Roosevelt. You are basically going, you are overtaking yourself in the process then. So that message must be sent very clear to Roosevelt / the DLP on the day. That is one item that must be made pretty clear, Hector, on the agenda on that day.
So you're saying the root of the problem, not the branches, not the fruit, just the root.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're right on cue.
Yep.
As we are on cue now.
Yeah.
The Electoral Commission, Hector, must be under the microscope on that day as well. The Electoral Commission, headed by what's his name? Duncan Stowe.
Yeah.
They must come under the gun, as it were, on that day, because they are a key cog in the wheel for Dominicans, by and large, to realize what we have been clamoring for years. Duncan Stowe as chair cannot continue to hide from the people of Dominica. We have to flush out Duncan Stowe. So on that day, the people will be telling Duncan Stowe that we need to hear from you and your commissioners. It cannot be you took up that position, 2 years ago, Hector? Lennox?
Yeah.
2020.
You're going on 3 years, 2020.
Exactly.
2020.
And gave the Dominican public a commitment that he don't want to disappoint them. So far, the brother have been a total disappointment, Hector, if you ask me.
Yeah, from the Granby by-election.
Nothing we have been hearing from the Electoral Commission as a body. We're hearing 1, 2 members, but that is not enough. We need to hear from the commission. So whatever Duncan Stowe is busy doing, wherever he's caught up, he needs to pay attention to the job that he lifted a Bible up and swore and said that he will do that job without fear and without ill will.
Without fear or favor, affection or ill will.
Exactly. So he needs to come up to scratch with those words. It cannot just be those words on the day and then he put it to sleep thereafter. So the people, Hector, must bring that out. We must be vociferous about that. Duncan Stowe and the commission must speak to the Dominican people. And so that is one line item on the agenda that must be clear. You understand? The president as well, Hector, Charles Angelo Savre, he too should be placed under the gun as well, as it were. He cannot continue to just hide up on Victoria Street in that mansion and do as if he hear and see no evil. Because under his stewardship as president, evil is taking place in the land. And it behooves him that is supposed to be the man for all the people. He's supposed to speak, say something, do something. The chair of the president calls for that at this time. The country now, Hector, is basically in a crisis as we are. Do we want it to get any worse?
But do you remember or do you realize that on the 29th, 2 days before our activity, it was 44 years of what happened in 1979, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to bring that to the
and yes,
remind
thanks
the
for the
public.
reminder. Thanks for the reminder.
Charles Angelo Savre was the leader.
So he's
now he's the president of the country right now.
He stood then for country.
Yeah.
And now it's even a more of an important time that he should stand. And he is in that position that affords him that opportunity to stand even more erect where the people's business is concerned. And so when your term is over, Chalo, in when? September, let it be said of you when the history that you stood like you stood back then. And so Charles Angelo Savre, we had some meetings with the brother when last year something, and he gave us his commitment that he would use his good office to, ensure or help the process that we have been speaking about in Dominica. Charles Angelo said that to us. Again, I don't know what he have been saying to whoever behind closed doors, but it would seem if he have been saying, they have not been taking him serious. If he have not been saying, then he lied to us. That's how I can put it. So the onus is on you, Mr. Savre, to declare your hand, brother. Don't go down in the history like as if, well, you let down your country and its people as president of the country. So Charles Savre will be under the microscope, Hector, on the day. Point number 4. We have the sole commissioner in the name of Sir Dennis Byron. Let me give me his proper handle. Sir Dennis Byron. Mr. Dennis Byron, the sir in front of your name should mean something. You served as president of the CCJ that we Dominicans are part of. You are supposed to be a very good man, a noble man, brother. So why have you been in the dark, as it were, where the Dominican public is concerned? So, of course, you, Dennis Byron, will come under the microscope as well. Declare your hand. The time has come. The time has basically passed, brother. I mean to say, I've been hearing things about Sir Dennis Byron as to whether he should take money or shouldn't take. That, to me, that's water under the bridge now. But at least there's supposed to be some kind of communication from Byron himself to the people. He said it in terms of the consultation period with the people. Are we going to sleep? No, it shouldn't be. And so on the day, Roosevelt Skerritt, Charles Angelo Savre, the commission, and also Sir Dennis Byron, they will be hearing from the people in a way that the people alone can speak. And it will not stop the Hector. It will be an ongoing process for those persons who are asking the question now, what next after the 31st? It will be an ongoing process. We will not relent. We will not stop until that sordid case is fixed once and for all. So as I said before, there should be no excuse. Everybody who believes in country should make their way to Roseau at about 2 o'clock. The function starts at 3, be there at 2. So that you can be part and parcel of the opening, the center, and the end of it all.
Thank you, Lofty. Listening to the Workers' Voice, we're discussing electoral reform on May 31st, 2023, where you have to be on the arch or at the arch on the riverbank from 3 p.m. for the electoral reform rally. In studios with me at Q95 is the president of the United Workers' Party and the interim chair of the ERC Electoral Reform Coalition, Mr. Loftus Dura, and we're discussing electoral reform. We're going to open the lines. It's 18 past 9 already. 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 305-432-9624, 305-432-9624 for overseas callers. And you can WhatsApp at 767-265-4334, 265-4334. You can also join us on Q95 FM radio on Facebook, and you can also make your comments, ask your questions in the comment column on Q95 FM radio. Mr. Linton.
Thank you, Hector. On the 18th of May, as president of the United Workers' Party, I wrote to Sir Dennis Byron, Electoral Reform Commissioner, Consultant, Dominica. Dear Sir Dennis, I shared a letter with you. Dear Sir Dennis, Re-Electoral Reform Report. I write seeking information on the status of the Electoral Reform Consultancy in which you have been engaged on contract with the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica. By letters dated November 6, 2022, you advised the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition that you had reached consensus with the Electoral Commission on proposals to amend the Registration of Electors Act, and you would therefore present phase 1 of the report during the month of November 2022. You advised then on moving ahead with the electoral reform recommendations as follows. Number 1, presentation of phase 1 report during the month of November 2022. Number 2, Parliament to table the registration of electors legislation in December 2022 with the plan to enact it in January 2023 so that the register of electors could be compiled in accordance with the recommendations during that calendar year. Number 3, presentation of phase 2 of the report, proposals to amend the House of Assembly Elections Act after a consultation process similar to that undertaken for phase 1 in February, March of 2023. Number 4, Parliament to table and enact the phase 2 legislation in March, April 2023. The United Workers' Party, the parliamentary opposition at the time, was involved in the stakeholder consultations of the electoral reform exercise that commenced in September 2020, 2 years and 9 months ago. We met with you at your request on November 28, 2022, to discuss the draft phase 1 report and expressed our reservations and concerns in 2 areas as follows. Number 1, cleaning the voters' register through confirmation. Provision for the Electoral Commission to designate overseas enrollment centers in select locations for confirmation of voters living overseas on the voters' register is inherently discriminatory and opens up the process to corrupt manipulation. Facilitation of eligible persons overseas to confirm their right to vote without having to incur the expense of travel to Dominica cannot be only for those with access to the few enrollment centers worldwide that will be set up at the discretion of the Commission. The proposed provision will only mitigate the cost of travel for certain overseas voters and effectively makes a mockery of ensuring that no eligible voter living overseas is disenfranchised. Registration of voters is done in person in Dominica. Voting is done in person in Dominica, and therefore confirmation of the voters register must be done in person in Dominica. Number two, disqualification of voters living overseas. The provision allowing disqualified voters who have not been ordinarily resident in Dominica for more than 5 years to be deemed not absent from Dominica and to remain on the voters register if they visit for an aggregate of 90 days over 1,865 days in the 5-year period is ill-advised. Registration to vote in Dominica is based on being ordinarily resident in a particular polling district in Dominica. Accordingly, disqualification should be based not on absence from Dominica, but on whether or not the person is no longer ordinarily resident in Dominica. In this regard, the reform needed is a clear definition in the legislation governing the electoral process of what it means to be no longer ordinarily resident in Dominica and therefore no longer eligible to vote after 5 years. This compromise that elevates absence from Dominica over non-residence in Dominica as the basis for disqualification facilitates continued corrupt ruling party manipulation of the overseas vote. It is not modernization based on international best practice. It is not electoral reform. As anxiety rises across the nation for the conclusion of the electoral reform exercise intended to make our electoral process fit for the purpose of free and fair elections, we note the failure to meet your timeline for implementation of the reform recommendations through amended election laws. The status of the draft Phase 1 report is unknown, and there is no indication when the Phase 2 report will be presented. Our expectations for amendments to the House of Assembly Elections Act were presented and discussed with you during the stakeholder consultations. Number one, access to media. We proposed provisions for access to all media for all political parties. We recommended prohibition of all media houses, print, radio, TV, digital, electronic, from denying any political party or candidate paid time and or space for the broadcast or publication of their messages. Media houses must be legally obligated to ensure that political parties and any independent candidates participating in elections have unrestricted access to media services during the campaign period. Penalties must be prescribed for failure to comply with the rules. We cautioned against granting discretionary authority to the Electoral Commission to pre-approve broadcasts, publications of opposition parties' candidates. Such provisions will not guarantee access. They will only present justification in law for operatives of institutions of state-owned, of state weaponized, institutions of state weaponized against the opposition to intensify their unjust, oppressive behavior in defense of a tainted electoral process. Number two, campaign finance reform. We recommended provisions for an election campaign period that begins at least 12 months before the election date, a limit on election campaign expenditure by political parties at $30 EC per registered voter, declarations of campaign contributions and election campaign spending, and prohibition of election campaign funding from questionable sources. Number three, bribery and treating. Allowing the payment of ANC transportation for voters living overseas and the payment of free entertainment for voters represent major deformities in the electoral process that have facilitated the theft of elections. We noted that elections in Dominica have increasingly featured the corrupt practices of bribing and treating local and overseas voters, eligible and ineligible, to cast ballots for the Dominica Labour Party. The existing law has been manipulated to allow valuable considerations of huge sums to be spent on airline and ferry tickets and free entertainment to corruptly influence votes. We recommended that the amended legislation must, at the very least, reflect the guidance of Halsbury's Laws of England, 4th edition, volume 15, paragraph 770, page 421, quote, the payment or promise of payment to a voter of his traveling expenses on the condition expressed or implied that he would vote for a particular candidate is bribery, end of quote. Number 4, abuse of incumbency. We recommended provisions to strictly prohibit using the resources of the state and projects resulting from the expenditure of public funds as campaign tools to corruptly, improperly, and unfairly and unduly influence voters and thereby gain political advantage. Number 5, election petitions. We recommended provisions to ensure that challenges to the election results filed within 21 days of the election as required by law are concluded within 90 days of filing, consistent with the counsel from the leaders of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court through the years, that it is important for the people to know as soon as possible after an election who their validly elected representatives are. We trust that these proposals will be included in the reform recommendations to amend our election laws in order to align our electoral process with the requirements of free and fair elections with integrity as the backbone of democratic governance in the Commonwealth of Dominica. We look forward to hearing from you at the earliest convenience. That was the President of the United Workers' Party's letter to the consultant, the electoral reform consultant, Sir Dennis Byron, on the 18th of May, 2022. It was copied to the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Duncan Stowe.
Okay, that was just about 7 days ago.
A week ago.
Yeah. All right, you're listening to the Workers' Voice. In studios with Mr. Lennox Linton, President of the United Workers' Party, and Mr. Loftus Dewar, Interim Chair of the Electoral Reform Coalition. And we're just discussing electoral reform and thus galvanizing the base and encouraging people to show up on the 31st. You have to show up on the riverbank, May 31st, next week, Wednesday, 3 p.m. You don't have any excuses this time. You don't have any excuses this time. Be there. There are too many reasons why you should be there. I mean, we have been bringing out them reasons.
Public officers.
Every day you have been hearing them. You heard Mr. Dura just mentioned them, Mr. Linton.
Public officers, Hector John, whether they are teachers, whether they are nurses, whether they're police officers, whether they're working in some office in the ministry, whether they're serving the state in any capacity anywhere around the country, they're being paid from the public purse, they're public officers. They should find themselves at the riverbank on the 31st of May. 3 o'clock.
One of the okay, Mr. Linton, sorry.
No, let me run through the list. The carpenters, the masons, the plumbers, the electrician, the tradesmen of Dominica, who are watching tradespeople from other parts of the world come in and do jobs in Dominica that they themselves find difficult to get. The place for you on the 31st is the riverbank. The truckers who are watching drivers from other lands driving trucks, be it on the airport project or some other project in Dominica funded by the monies from the sale of passports. You have a duty and an obligation to come and stand with your brothers and sisters on the 31st at the riverbank in Roseau. The heavy equipment operators, same story. The bus drivers all across the country. You should be trying to see how you can make sure your bus is in Roseau by 2:30 with people from your district, and to make sure you get them back safely to their destinations. This is about you. The more people in Dominica that are making money, the more of your brothers and sisters that are making money, the more they'll be able to afford your transportation services, the more you'll be able to expand, the more you'll be able to sustain your livelihoods and make money for yourself. The lawyers, the doctors, the professional class of people, the elderly in Dominica, isn't it time for you to join the cause to rescue your country? The young people, the children going to school, whose future is dim because of the way this country has been governed. The chances of young people at school getting a job in Dominica is so much lower than the chances of the Antiguan students in school, or the St. Kitts students, or the St. Lucian student, or the St. Vincent student in school getting a job in their country. Young people have a responsibility to stand with us as well. The scores of unemployed young people, many of them qualified enough to get a good paying job in Dominica, but they're simply not there. They're not available. And so the coalition of people, the broad coalition of people that will assemble in Dominica will be the largest ever seen in the history of Dominica, because of the extent to which what is happening in governance is impacting everybody in every walk of life, in every nook and cranny, in every sector of this society across Dominica. That's where the people are going to come from.
And added to that, okay, Hector, take the call.
Go ahead, go ahead. I mean,
Added to that, Hector, in terms of the list that.
let me just take it.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Hello, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, happy to hear you guys on the radio, and happy to be able to contribute to the plea to the Dominican people tonight. Tonight, I want to apply to the labor rights. Tonight, I want to apply to the freedom rights. Tonight, I want to apply to the people that is standing on the side and say that they're going to watch what is happening. Every one of us is a gift of God. I heard Lofty pray tonight, and based on the prayers, this is what we're going to stand for. Because there's a God that wants better for all his children. Every child that's born in Dominica, from labor rights, from non-labor rights, from every other right, born with a dream and a purpose. It was not just Roosevelt Skerritt that was born with a dream to be prime minister. There is a number of children that born from poor, hard-working family that have their dream and would like one day to be able to deliver the dream to the land that they were born in and the land that gives them birth, land of our birth. So I am saying to all these people on the outside, this is not a politics. This is where you're going to stand and put your boots on the ground for the future of your children and their children, so that their dreams can come through and come true, that we can have brand new politicians in the small schools that develop from there into the high offices and being able to manage our country, to develop the country in order that their parents' life can be of value. So I am appealing to Dominicans from all walks of life, the labor rights. It is time for us to understand that this insurance that the Prime Minister said that he has for his children, and your children have none, it is time for all of us to be insured. All our children that is having the problems. Tonight I hear they talking about there's no syringes and the type of instrument to make you get life water, which we call life water from the days of the past, in the hospital. I am asking you, I am appealing to you, put your boots on the ground on the 31st. Stand up for your child, because the number of young prime ministers in the youth that is growing up, you must be proud of your children. You have to send them to school, you have to feed them, and you need them to at least go for the dream that God gives them. Each and every one of us have a dream. So I'm saying tonight, stand firm, and on the 31st, come out in large numbers to send the message that our children have the same value as Roosevelt carried. All the labor rights. Bye-bye and good night.
Thank you very much, caller, for your input. I hope that some people hearing you echoing that sentiment to be counted on the 31st. Mr. Durant.
Yes, Hector, and thank the caller for his sentiments tonight. As well, I just want to add some more names or some more organizations based on where Lennox left off earlier, where the ERC, that is Electoral Reform Coalition now, will be asking, requesting, writing to some of these organizations out there to come, let their voices be heard as well. Because at the end of the day, it cannot be, or it will not be, or it is not a partisan thing that is happening on the 31st. It is a Dominican thing. So that is why we're asking everybody to come represent. If you are an organization out there that is worth your salt, representing the interests of Dominican Dominicans, that invitation is extended to all of you out there. And so, Hector, I just want to run through a list of some of the names of some of the organizations in Dominica that invitations, as we speak, are being extended to. We have the National Youth Council. That is the organization, Hector, that speaks to or have the interest, or supposed to be having the interest of young people at heart.
Yeah. Across Dominica.
Right.
Apolitical.
So our young people, that is a good cross-section of Dominicans there that we need to appeal to and have them on board for the work that is needed ahead. The young people, you guys, your input is crucial in helping save Dominica. Should I say some of us, we are up there in age already. Should I say that, Linton?
Yes,
You know,
Lofty, we have to remember something. Free speech is the prerogative of he who prays like you prayed at the start, because there's something it said. It doesn't come to mind right now, but when it comes, I'll disturb you to tell it to you.
Okay. Why I ask you is because I'm in between there. So I was wondering whether I should say I'm on my way out.
No, not yet.
Okay.
I don't believe.
We're paving the way.
I don't believe you're there yet.
That is why I asked.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
That is why I asked. All right, but the point is, the young people.
The words of your mouth and the meditation of your heart from earlier were acceptable in the sight of the guy upstairs. So you have the privilege.
Good. Okay. Thank you. So the young people, the National Youth Council will be written to. The DAIC, that's another August body in Dominica. The DHT, the Manufacturer Association in Dominica, they too will be receiving some kind of a communication from us, the ERC, that is, inviting them to the function, to the activity on that day, the 31st, that is. We also have the Dominica Business Forum, the Dominica Christian Council, WAHU, the Dominica National Women Council. You guys will be written to as well. WAVE as an organization doing good things for and on behalf of Dominica where the environment is concerned. You guys will be written to as well. We have the Dominica Amalgamated Workers Union. Also, letters will be going out to the DEF, that is the Dominica Employers Federation. The Dominica Bar Association, defunct as it is now, a communique will be going out to you guys because we need you guys on board as well. You are a crucial cog in that wheel in moving forward. The lawyers, so we need you guys on board. The Truckers Association, Mr. Linton mentioned him earlier. The Bus Drivers Association. So those of you out there with these trucks, buses, whatever it is, that you guys are going through the plight of how bad the economy is, you're feeling the pinch. Please come and register your support for freer and fairer elections. And a lot of times some persons say, but what does elections or free and fair process have to do with me driving a bus on the road? Yes. there is space for that, you as a bus driver. Because at the end of the day, the monies that you receive from the passengers, the policy makers, they set that price in place. So if it is pinching you, if it is pinching your passengers, if it is pinching persons in the economy, you have a stake in the matter as well. So the truckers, please come and register. It cannot be we're having this once in a lifetime project and you guys are left in the cold. No, come and show your disgust. So you guys will be written to as well. We also have, Hector, in the interest of time, the taxi associations. We heard of that situation that is unfolding on the Bayfront, Hector.
Vendors.
And right about now, let me use the opportunity here to empathize with these vendors on the Bayfront. In such a, inhuman manner, they are being kicked out, not being able to fend for their family properly by depriving them of making an honest living. We also have, Hector, the Football Association, all the sporting facilities in Dominica, football, cricket, whatever it is, you guys will be written to. So everybody, Hector, you guys are welcome. Everybody. I'll be going through the letter to the Commissioner of Police in just a while.
Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Hey, in the interest of time, gentlemen, blessings to you all.
Blessings.
Blessings, bro.
Blessings.
I don't know no long thing about resistance, blessings, and glory before Hector stand. Give me the, or Angela to call it the new press week.
Yeah.
Honorable men, blessings to you. Mr. Durant, blessings to you all.
Blessings, sir.
Blessings.
When you had Sam Raphael on my program, I called and I asked about the FAA, Mr. Linton. Mr. Linton, I want you to help me there. The man said we are sovereign states and we operating under, can you remember what, Mr. Linton? We operating under another organization, and the name I just forgot, but I did not take my note.
Operating under another organization in terms of what? In terms of air travel?
Yeah, having to do with the hospital and the planning and so many things that are not in place.
Mm-hmm.
And how, if we're building an international airport and the requirements are not met.
ICAO, that would be International Civil Aviation Authority organization.
Something like that. But I'm just saying, because even when you had the planner there, I coming right back to electoral reform, you had the planner there, the guy in charge of the construction of the international airport. When I told him about planning, he told me about another organization they're operating under the bypass planning as well. So I am just saying all that to say, the people that are indecisive, they don't know if they should show up or if they should not show up. Dominica. It's about Dominica. It's not about U.W.P or Labour or nothing like that. It's about saving that country. Because it seems like, you see this song about Dominica is a whole planet, something like that. Dominica is a planet by itself. The rules that govern the rest of the Caribbean, talking about sovereign states. I mean, so many things. We can claim sovereignty, but we deliberately ignore certain things and just selectively talk about sovereignty. So I want to give thanks to the initiators of that movement. I want to give thanks to the contributors. And I just want to say more glory and more power to the people of Dominica that can put their foot down and say, no, enough is enough, man. Our money, I mean, the state of affairs in Dominica is in the worst state it has ever been, not after Maria or Erica, that have brought us so low. So I really want to give thanks again in the interest of time and they're listening, and I just say, let me call and make a quick contribution. But I'll get my information and try to question where we are when it comes to the rule of law, whether regionally or internationally or locally. What is happening in Dominica when we see all kind of things happening and no accountability, no transparency, no respect, no law, no constitution. So people have to wake up and say our lives have gotten worse for that 22 years, going on 23 years. And with all the talk and the promises and the games, we are not seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. If there is an incoming train. Gentlemen, thanks, and I'm listening.
All right. And one correction, blessings. It has been 23 years. Labour Party has been in office from the 28th of January 2000. So 23 years past and a few months. All right. Yes, Lofty.
Yes, Hector, there's also, I'm on the ground. And that is where you get
some of the vibes.
The real vibes, as it were. There's the word on the ground that sort of filtering around and is questioning the timing of that activity being May 31st. And is saying as that June 1st, that there will be CXC or students.
Grade 6.
Grade 6 assessment.
National assessment.
Yeah, the national assessment.
Right.
Yes, thanks. And some persons are suggesting that that activity should not be there because it's going to trouble our students. But let me just allay the fears of some persons who are of that mindset out there, that the activity will end at a reasonable hour so that our students, their parents can have the time on their hand to prepare well enough so that our students rather, can sit those exams in peace and comfort. Let me again say that there will be no need for this buckling down and shutting down of businesses in Roseau in particular, because the activity itself will not be one of any chaotic or violence in nature. And so those of you out there with that mindset, pushing that kind of fable, as it were,
negative vibes,
you need to stop it. Stirring at something that is really not there, trying to get persons worked up to dissuade persons from coming to activity. As part of the planning and putting it together, I just want to allay the fears of some persons out there in that regard.
Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Good evening. Hello. I'm just coming back to get to Lofty. Lofty, the heavy-duty equipment owners, you need to also call them personally, because the amount of heavy-duty equipment that came into Dominica over the past month to keep these guys that invested money in heavy-duty equipment to be able to pay back their loans, I would like you to call them out, Lofty. Call them out. They need to hear that from you, asking them to stand up for that purpose on that day.
True.
Boots on the ground.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Boots on the ground. Yes.
Hello, good evening from the overseas line. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen.
Yes.
Good evening.
There's a trucker here. Yeah, what I have to say is that I think people should come together and think as a collective body what is going to take place. Because I heard you, Lofty, talking about, someone said about the children going to be disturbed. But what I'm saying is that when Hurricane David, Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Erica came in Dominica, it disrupted many things. And no schools, no work. Did anyone question God and ask God, why did he do that? Our children couldn't go to school? And there's a saying that goes, God help those who help themselves. What you all are planning to do, this is for their future also, so they could have a better future. So you see, when these people and them so into, I don't know, they have to be into so much them labor rights, or be a labor right or something, think like that. They're not thinking futuristic. It's just sad. We have to come as a collective body to make a change in Dominica, for things to get better. All of the other islands are way ahead of Dominica. That should be so much ahead of the other islands. Like the gentleman today, he came and spoke forcefully about what was going on with him and the bar they want to break down. All of a sudden, he came back in an apology to apologize. What I'm trying to say, when Jesus broke all them tables in the temple, did he apologize to anyone? He was angry. He did what he had to do, and they were taking food from his mouth and his family. So he didn't have no reason to apologize. This is how they demasculate our men in Dominica. Men stand up and be men and fight for stand up for a change in Dominica. God damn it, man. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, caller, for your input. It's just about 8 to 10 on Q95, the Workers' Voice, as we begin to wind up. Call coming in. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Hello, Hector and Leonard.
Good evening.
Yeah, that's Boston. Johnson.
Yeah, good evening, Miss Johnson Boston of the Dominica Freedom Party.
What's up, bro?
Yes, Bosso.
Yes, I was supposed to be with you all tonight, but I had another movement, so I just came from it now.
All right.
I listened earlier on. I think you all done a fantastic job in promoting this event as an event for the country, not for a partisan interest, for the country. I think we had a fantastic meeting last night in the Photo Federation Drive, and I think we started the momentum there, and it will continue. And what I find very disturbing, there are some people who are in the Labour Party. I was told today that Daryl Pitt and a few of them was on the radio, and they were saying that the police should search the place before and allow and give us a very short period to have the rally, and when we search after. I mean, rallies and meetings have always been held in Dominica. Is either these people totally ignorant, or they're scared of something, and they do not want the people of Dominica to be liberated, because if they're liberated, the people will be empowered, and they who are there just with their two hands open wide, begging and begging, and they feel the only way they can benefit from this begging is to keep the people down and to lie to the people and threaten them and let them feel that their interests should not be looked into. And I think what we'll be doing on May 31st is for all of us as Dominicans to come together to demonstrate. I mean, let's face it, the Labour Party is in government for over 20 years. So they have had sufficient time to do things. It tells you that if a simple thing like reform is taking all these years, it's because there is something there that they are benefiting from and they're afraid to lose it. And if you are so good, you're performing well, the country is growing, the economy is flamboyant, people are employed, then why should you be afraid of a level playing field? Come like a man, give reform, and present your case to the people, and they will elect you if you are so good, if their situation is improved. It tells you that you are keeping the country down. You have not been performing in the interest of the country. A lot of things is like things that come to you like thief in the night. You hear things are being done like thief in the night, and it's not benefiting the country. People are in Dominica looking for employment, and they're being bypassed. And when come for election, they're being treated, given right, given big music, given all the things to vote. But when the jobs are available, people are not being seen. I mean, how a country can be run like that after 20 years, and you're still there trying to give electoral reform and come like a man, come like a party, and present yourself and your case, and people will vote for you, and so forth. Then Sir Dennis Byron, I think he's from St. Kitts, and I know he's lived in St. Lucia for a long time. We need at some point to go to St. Kitts to have a press conference, and go to St. Lucia to have a press conference, so that the people can see that Sir Dennis Byron collaborated with Roosevelt Skerrit to behave in what things are happening. I mean, some people are saying our parliament today, they're not feeling the impact of our parliament because a real opposition is not in there. And I think he and Roosevelt Skerrit should be blamed for that. I mean, the electoral reform was promised, he was hired, another election was called, and he hasn't said a word or even resigned. And so a man like that, I mean, I know him, I respect him. He have worked as a Chief Justice in the OECS. He have President of the Court of Appeal and so forth, and therefore you expect him to stand way and above irresponsible behavior and trickery. And I can't understand that at this point his name would be in this kind of thing. And Duncan Sousa guy is my friend of mine, a gentleman I respect highly. And I would hate to be in anything to be criticizing him, but I think he has not done the work that he was appointed to do. And up to now, we have not shown the mantle of his capabilities. He's an officer of the court, a lawyer. I want to expect him to be able to lead that commission. In fact, Gerald Burton, was even a little better than him because you used to hear something happening. Nothing is happening. And can we continue to be that way? So people must come out on the 31st and say once and for all, if you're a Labour writer, you like the Labour Party, come out so that they can know that you disapprove of their behavior. If you're a Freedomite, come out to show, U.W.P, come out to show the world that we cannot continue to behave and to be in a situation where all other countries have had reform, voter ID card, cleansing their list. What is so wrong in cleansing a list? After all, and so forth. So I don't interest of time. I don't want to take too much time, but I think you're doing a fantastic job, and the people of Dominica should make up their mind that we liberate this country, or we think where we would be very, very embarrassed in the future as to whether we are people who understand our role and our existence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boston, for joining in. Johnson Boston of the Dominica Freedom Party. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Time is almost upon us. Just 2 minutes to 10 as we begin to wind up on this very important discussion that we have had tonight on electoral reform and looking to get our people out to show up and be counted on the 31st of May 2023 on the riverbank in Roseau from 3 p.m. Mr. Dura.
Well, Hector, in terms of my final words here tonight, let me thank all those who are on social media. We have a little bumper traffic here, back and forth conversation that in and out of itself is healthy for democracy. Martin Luther King and also Malcolm X, whenever they spoke, they always took time off to acknowledge the people who are not in sync with their rational reasoning. So, I too want to acknowledge those persons as well who are on the live that are not in sync with what is happening. I hope one day that they will finally see that light for Dominica. But it is what it is. Let me just say as well, Hector, in closing here, that Boston made a comment about, on the other side, persons talking about searching this and searching that or searching who. There's a word that the good book says in Proverbs 28:1. The wicked flee when no one pursues them, but the righteous one is as bold as a lion. And so you don't have to give yourself too much headache when persons are insinuating certain things. They know exactly why they're doing that, because as Proverbs 28:1 says, the wicked man flees when no one pursues them. That is powerful in and out of itself.
Yeah. And it's also a point of desperation when people like Daryl Tit want to influence.
Well, the good book have the answer right there, Hector. Yeah. Hector, let me compliment, let me encourage those of us who have been part and parcel of that struggle. Lennox Linton, the opposition forces, and all right-thinking Dominicans who have been on that travail, on that road, on that struggle for so long. And I want to compliment all of us. I want to help inspire us, though sometimes the road may be looking very doom, maybe looking very glim. But nothing in life that is worthy comes without a struggle. And so it behooves all of us to keep steadfast. One day, Dominica will be the beneficiary of our hard work. And so it's on that note, that very high note, I want to leave all of us tonight, that let us continue in the work that we have started. It is not for the swift, but it is for those of us who will endure. And so come May 31st, people, let us be in the place, in the flesh. Those of you who cannot be in the flesh, we understand that because of sickness or you're out of state. But those of us who can, let us make it our point of duty to stand for our country. And as, what's his name? Malcolm X used to say, if it is not given freely, then we have to take it by whatever means necessary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lofty. Just someone sent me a message earlier on. The word that Blessings was looking for, the Eastern Caribbean
Civil Aviation Authority.
Authority, yeah. So,
ECA.
ICA. I just wanted to clear that up here. Mr. Linton.
Thank you, Hector. This morning at 10 o'clock, a group of us from the United Workers' Party met with the Commissioner of Police and his team at his invitation to discuss the event on May 31st, 2023. The commitment from the police is that they will provide crowd control, they provide traffic control, and they will police the event as they're required to do to protect life, to protect property, and to ensure law and order in the public space that the meeting will occupy on the riverbank. And that's good enough for us. We spoke about lessons learned from previous experiences and previous experiences that the police have had with public meetings organized by the United Workers' Party, of which the police have been notified, because we do not require, let me be very clear, we do not require police permission to have a public meeting. And we have public meetings pursuant to the right of the people under the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica to freedom of movement, to freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression. And none of those rights that are granted by the Constitution should be fettered by any action of law enforcement or any other body in the country that are not consistent with actions that are justifiable or reasonably required in a democratic society. We are operating with that understanding across the board, across the table between the police and ourselves. We had an experience in 2017, which we reviewed this morning, where hours after our meeting ended at 4:21 in the afternoon, there was some disturbance in the city that we were eventually blamed for, and for which I am before the court along with others for incitement. There is a concern that the police has that there should be no inflammatory statements, etc., on our platform. We have never been a party that encourages inflammatory or incendiary statements on our platform, but we welcome the concern of the police, especially in light of the number of instances where inflammatory comments have been made on the platform of the Dominica Labour Party that the police have not paid any attention to at all. Lennox Lawrence calling for United Workers' Party people to be hunted down as Obama hunts down Al-Qaeda and deal with them, whether they hide in La Plaine or they hide in Salisbury, they hide in Marigot.
Drones.
And the comments from Reginald Austria directed at me where I am supposed to, the people should disappear me because no pavle me say, me says a headache, me says a problem, just take him up and go with him. Those comments were made on a political platform of the Dominica Labour Party, no interest from the police at all. There is the case of the Prime Minister of Dominica threatening bloodshed, threatening to shed the blood of the people of Dominica should the people vote for United Workers' Party to go into government, then the blood of Dominicans would be on their hands. The Prime Minister threatening United Workers' Party supporters and telling his supporters to throw hot water on them when they come before your door, on your step to campaign. And the list went on, and we went through that with the police high command this morning, and to tell them we welcome their concern that inflammatory language should not be on the platform. Our record is clear in that regard in terms of the number of United Workers' Party public meetings that they have policed, and we intend to keep it that way. But this business of we are mindful that there are mischief makers around the place, and there are people who will try to create confusion that can be blamed on the United Workers' Party or on the other partners in this collaborative effort. And we asking all the supporters coming from near and far, coming from all around Dominica, to have their eyes open and to have their cameras on the ready for anything untoward that may happen, so we can have the evidence clearly as to what went down. But, you know, nobody should be afraid of coming to Roseau on the 31st. The right that we have to freedom of assembly, the right that we have to freedom of association, to freedom of expression, is not a privilege that is granted to us by Roosevelt Skerrit or the police of Dominica. It is a right that is enshrined in our supreme law, the Constitution. They don't give it to us. It is God-given, right? That freedom of expression, that right to assemble freely, to meet together, and to express ourselves, it comes from our Creator. And nobody should be denied of those rights. And nobody should be scared of enjoying those rights because the police are going to be present. Understand that the police have their role to play, and they'll be controlling traffic, they'll be controlling the crowd, and they will be ensuring that life and property is protected and that there is good order and peaceful conduct at the rally. That is their role, that is their responsibility. That's what we pay them to do as officers of the state. So no fears, no worries. The police are getting ready to do the event, and we're getting ready to go to the event. Some of us will be there early. Some of us will be walking in Roseau on that Wednesday, and we will go from walking to the location and on the riverbank for a meeting. We have given the police the assurance that the meeting will not go beyond the legal limit of 11 o'clock in the evening. We will be there from 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And meetings take on their own dynamic, especially meetings of that nature, right? There's a lot of things that we have to discuss. There are a lot of things that the people of Dominica must meet on and talk about in this starting point for electoral reform, fixing of our electoral process, rescuing the country, resetting the economy, and rebuilding Dominica for all Dominicans. That is why we will stand on the 31st, for nothing more, for nothing less. For that enlightened purpose, we all stand.
Just quickly, somebody was asking for color code. Is there color code? Is white? What is it?
No.
Everybody-
There's no color code,
Right.
no white, no blue, no any color code. Come in the color of your choice. So if you want to come in red, because you see, this is for all Dominicans and all colors. Labor rights are suffering in this country as well. They can come to the event on the 31st and join all of us to show that we are united. We enjoy solidarity with each other in this mission to change course in Dominica.
Sure. Hector, just finally, I want to read the letter that Lennox referred to in terms of the police meeting a group of people today to sort of, get an understanding as to what will be going down come the 31st. And it is that letter that was sent to the police came from the United Workers' Party. It's on the letterhead, and it was dated Thursday, the 18th of May, 2023. The letter basically states the Chief of Police, Office of the Chief of Police, Police Headquarters, Bath Road, Roseau, Commonwealth of Dominica. Subject, rally on Wednesday, 31st May, 2023. Dear Chief, the United Workers' Party Team Dominica, in conjunction with the Electoral Reform Coalition, that's the ERC, as well as other interested people and groups, will host a mass rally, public meeting that is, open quote, the first one of many to be held, close quote, at the Arch, Riverbank, Roseau, Commonwealth of Dominica on Wednesday, 31st May, 2023 from 3 p.m. By this notification, your consideration is sought in the provision of police officers to provide security, safety, and traffic control services at the first meeting and every other such meeting that will be held in the future following proper notification. It ends by saying, looking forward to your usual professional consideration and approval of the requests contained therein respectfully. And it was signed by the General Secretary of the United Workers' Party, that is Mr. Nicholas George.
All right, thank you very much, Lofty. Thank you and Mr. Linton for being here with us this evening on Q95 on the Workers' Voice, May 25th, 2023, African Liberation Day, as we discuss and prepare ourselves to be on the riverbank, May 31st, from 3 p.m. to May 31st, 2023, for the electoral reform rally. We are calling on everybody in Dominica who would like to see the country move in the right direction. Even government ministers and senators were disappointed or decided do not like what is happening. You can join us as well. We're asking everybody to join us. Labor rights, freedom rights.
You're expecting some members of the cabinet will come?
Yes, I'm expecting them. They will touch base. They will listen. If they cannot make it to be there, but they'll be with us. I know there are a lot of them will be with us because even a lot of the NEP workers as well, Mr. Linton. I met a few of them who told me, Hector, I want to be there, but you know how they're looking at that is the only income that I have. But they will be there with us in solidarity, in spirit. But some of them will make it. Some of them they'll wait for this, maybe the sun to go down a bit and show up, but they will be there. Good. We want everybody to show up, come there, be counted, and be part of the process, be part of the movement. That is starting off the movement. And from there, we'll begin to get the ball rolling. I heard Mr. Linton on we being mindful of what is said on the platform, what is done, but we have to, some people will come, the information have to get out there. Come and listen. And there's some people, somebody asked me today, a bus driver asked me, why should I be there? And I know what is going on. I said, come there, but we just want you to stand in solidarity. And that is important. Not sit at your home. Take your bus, bring people, make sure that your bus is full. Salisbury, all the buses that want to come to Roseau, contact me. I'll contact each and every one of you over the weekend. We want every bus from Salisbury. We want every vehicle from Salisbury to leave for Roseau. Salisbury could be still more to leave for Roseau.
Talking about buses, Hector.
Yeah.
Someone called me today and they told me from the La Plaine, Dalis area, persons in that neck of the woods should not have a problem for buses or transportation because that person is prepared to pay for each and every bus that will be leaving that area, feel that is, with persons on board to come down. So at least that neck of the wood is covered when it comes for transportation.
So we could be sure Monachet is covered. Also reminding the bus drivers, and I know the people from Salisbury they're listening, could be Street as well, Monachet as well. Yeah. We organize our buses and we're coming up to Roseau in large numbers. And those of you who want to carpool as well. If you want your horses, your dumper, your just bring them across. The heavy equipment operators, we meet a brother man on the street and they're passing with your backhoe. Carry him to the Roseau as well. All right, see you. Have a wonderful weekend. Don't forget to join us tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. next to the Prevost Cinema as we continue the sales of a ticket for the raffle of a Mazda Demio, a flat screen TV, and a rice cooker. Only $5. Join us there. And if you want to make a contribution towards the activity, join us. You can come to the party's office on 6 River Street in downtown Roseau. That is close to the car wash on River Street. And also you can contact our secretary at 265-0928. 265-0928. Have a wonderful evening. God bless you. See you next week, Wednesday. Have a wonderful Monday weekend, Pentecost Monday weekend. Those of you going to Granby or if you're going to Petite Sophia, Good Hope, San Sauvé, have a safe and enjoyable time. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Classroom. What does that do to you?
Determination and a fast runner. I became a very fast runner. One sports day, I clocked 100 at 11.72 seconds.
That's fast.
I know. And it was like, oh yeah. And then, it's one of my ambitions. So being bullied made me quicker.
So tell me, you've got so much going on at home, at school, with your health. What's the kind of escape? Like, where do you go to seek solace? Where do you go to find something comforting?
Sketchbook. sketchbook, pencil, pens, anything I could draw on, anything, because that can't be sold. A sketchbook can't be sold.
What do you mean it can't be sold?
Well, you know, if you live in a household where, you know, one time you may have some electrical goods that can be sold, like toys, for instance, you know, that can be sold to put food on the table. You know, a sketchbook can't be sold because it's once it's been drawn in, it's mine. It's no one else's. It's my way of just taking